And we are live for the Diabetes Dugout with Jordan Thompson. Peachy, what you got in store for us this evening then?
We've got an absolute cricket legend lined up. He's blushing already. We got someone who has is currently playing for Yorkshire. Look on his bio, it says bowler. He's a bit of an all-rounder, but I don't know if he'd like to admit that. He's been playing all around the world recently, in different competitions, giving up his time for us today to talk cricket, other sport, diabetes, life. Massive thanks, Jordan Thompson.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's happy to be here.
Brilliant.
Thanks for joining us, Jordan. Really appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to this chat this evening, talking all things your career, Type 1, and anywhere else that we go throughout the next hour or so. I think the first thing to say is those joining us on our social media platforms, please do chip in with your thoughts, your comments, and importantly, your questions. And we will be able to bring them up on screen, put them to Jordan, as long as they are, PC for this time of night before the watershed, obviously. So, make sure they're in line with our conversation today, and we'll put them in front of Jordan and see what answers he has for us. And hopefully it's just going to be a really nice, relaxed conversation about your background, Jordan. And I know Mr. Peach has been working away to get this sorted and lined up, and we're both really keen to have this conversation.
I think just one question before we start, Brighty. Just one thing I noticed, if I went to my settings on here, I don't know if you've added this, but I've got the ability to touch up my appearance on here now. So I'm not sure if that's something you've added on to try and increase the viewers.
Well, it's probably needed for myself these days, John, and I can't comment for you. We won't be as mean to Jordan. Jordan definitely doesn't need that sort of stuff, but me and you, there's an argument that button's been made for us.
Give yourself some hair, Peachy.
Is there an add hair button as well on there, John, or what?
Yeah, you don't want to see me with hair. I've looked awful over the years. In fairness, it's been 20 odd years, so getting there. Anyway, let's move on. Jordan, let's just start with your diagnosis. So Friday the 13th it was. You were diagnosed.
I remember it. I remember it very well, actually, because Friday the 13th, I was actually going to the cinema with friends on that evening to see Insidious. Do you remember Insidious, the horror film? I wasn't too keen on going to see it, and it definitely got me out of going to see it because I found myself in hospital bed a few hours later. But yeah, Friday the 13th, I was prior to this, I was playing cricket still. It was coming towards the end of the season, and I started getting certain symptoms, obviously the obvious symptoms that we talk about with diabetes. But there was one cricket match that stuck out in particular, and I was playing for Yorkshire Academy at Barnsley. It was a league match we used to play against local teams as the younger lads to kind of gain experience. And out of nowhere, I batted quite well in that game, got some runs. And in the second innings, we were bowling, and I bowled maybe 10 overs, and I started cramping up as I was running into bowl. And I was like, this is weird, really strange, because it's not often that I kind of cramped up. I was obviously pretty fit. I was saying to the coaches, "Can you get me some water and stuff?" And the coaches were actually like, "Oh, no, you should be fine. Like, you've only bowled this many overs." Obviously, not knowing what was happening. Anyway, so I finished the game, got in my dad's car on the way back, and I couldn't sit with my legs bent. I had to sit across the back seat with my legs laid out, because as soon as I put any bend in my knee, my whole legs were just cramping up. And found it really weird, and obviously told my parents, and we left it that night, and just to see how it was. Anyway, so came back from school one night and said to my mum, "Look, I really don't feel right." And my mum works at the local doctors as a receptionist, so she kind of had an idea of certain symptoms of certain what's the word? Certain
medical conditions.
Yes, certain medical conditions. Sorry, I went blank there. Certain conditions. So she was like, "I'm not sure. There's something definitely not right." So took me straight to the doctors and the doctor tested my blood sugars, and 44 was the number, actually. I think 44.4 or something like that.
Wow.
And he said to me, I'm surprised you're still standing. Get to the hospital now, was his words. And I think he pretty much said that the fact that I've been running around playing cricket and obviously other activities was keeping me going. So found myself in the hospital that night. Went straight to A&E, and they said, yeah, we'll get you straight into a bed, and found myself in a hospital bed for 3 days.
And you were 16 at that point, is that right?
Yeah, 16. Yeah. So obviously it was quite. Obviously, I'm not sure when you boys were diagnosed, but it was obviously quite late from what they were telling me when I went straight to the hospital.
Yeah, but we were both young. I was 5, so I always maintain that I've never known any difference. So I consider it myself quite lucky, in a strange way. But that's all I've ever known. I remember various bits of my diagnosis, but I've not. Like I think that, in my opinion, getting it as a teenager is the worst.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually, because I kind of took on the approach similar to you, that I actually found myself lucky that I'd got it at that time, because as a 16-year-old, I was playing cricket at Yorkshire Academy. I was on the verge of kind of professional contracts, so I was quite mature, and I took it as a bit of an inspiration in a way, because I was like, right, if I'm going to play professional sport, obviously that was the first question was, is that the end of my cricket career? But then as soon as I was told what I needed to do and how I could manage it, I then took it as an inspiration to go, right, I'm going to prove people wrong here and prove that I can do what I want and play professional sport with the medical condition that we've got.
I think just like when you said, I wrote it down, 44.4. I think how rubbish do you feel now if you're sort of up in the teens, or if you ever hit a 20 and you just, for me, just sort of feel it zaps you.
Yeah. So, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If I get into kind of late teens, and I start to feel really groggy, it's not a nice feeling. So I didn't know anything different back then. So that feeling of being 44 must have been absolutely awful.
Yeah, and I don't know if, John, have you heard many higher readings than 44 pre? I have not seen many registered as 44 talking about their diagnosis story. I know I wasn't. My number, I think, when I was diagnosed was somewhere between, I can't remember for exact, but somewhere between like 20 and 25, which is obviously high. And these days we're all like, wow, that's feeling rough. But you would double that. I can't even imagine what double that felt like. I mean, feeling like 20 now is tough going. So yeah, that's brutal, really brutal. And I guess a really drastic early introduction, having to go into hospital. I know I was in hospital for a number of days when I was diagnosed, nearly a full week. Did you have days on a drip? And
yeah, it was so it would have been, so I went in on the evening. I think I had maybe 2 full days, and then came out on the 3rd, 4th day. It was a funny story, actually, because I was in the bed, and I think it might have been the 2nd day, and obviously they try to bring my sugars down, and the menu comes round for dinner, and I'm thinking there's a toffee sponge or whatever there, on the sticky toffee pudding or whatever on the menu, and I say to one of the nurses, like, am I allowed to have that? And she's like, and she looks at it and then looks at my board, and she's like, oh no, that shouldn't be on there. So it was kind of a bit, I think I've been eating things that I shouldn't have whilst I was actually there. Obviously I hadn't been taught how to deal and go about it, like obviously the insulin injections yet. So they were trying to bring my sugars down through the saline and the drip and stuff like that. So I think even they weren't fully on it when I first went in. So obviously that was a bit of a worry. But then obviously I spoke to the nurse, the kind of specialist diabetes nurse came in, and it went from there. I think the first injection that I ever took was probably the scariest moment. But then as soon as I stuck it in and didn't feel a thing, I think from then on I was okay.
I think it's interesting what you said there about like having that stuff and not knowing, because I've heard stories of people, I know it happened to me, that you get visited because you're in hospital, and what do you take someone that's in the hospital? You might take them some sweets or some chocolates.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, you got them there, and you're having them. apart from one of my friends who it was October time I was diagnosed, so my friend decided to bring in a massive bag of conkers. I thought I might like to play conkers in the hospital, except he bought them in a carrier bag which split as he was going up the stairs.
Oh, no.
So
Shocker.
it's they went all down the stairs, and there was a bit of a concern with people slipping on them.
Yeah.
No, it's but again, it's sort of that education bit, isn't it? And if you don't know sort of anything about diabetes, and you're coming to this new thing that you know nothing about, so sort of with regards you picking up about it, did you know anything about it before you were diagnosed, and how did you sort of discover what it was going to be like for you now?
Yeah, no, it was like you say, it was something that was obviously a total shock. It doesn't run in the family. Came out of nowhere, so I can't say that I knew a whole lot about it. I'm pretty sure I might have learned very briefly about it in school, but probably didn't really pay attention that much. But would have come in handy. But yeah, so like I said, the diabetes specialist came around and obviously taught me through things, and I learned pretty quickly with things like that. So I picked it up pretty quickly. And one thing that actually came in very handy, which I used as soon as I was out of hospital, was a very thick book of carbs and cals. And I found myself, I don't know, it's been a couple of months every dinner time, lunchtime, flicking through it. What's the carb value of this and this and that? And then I think after a couple of months, I kind of knew it off by heart, and it became second nature. So I think, yeah, I learned pretty quickly about it. I think the hospital were very good. They had me back in pretty often to obviously keep an eye on me and make sure that I was doing everything okay.
And at what point was your question of, am I going to still be able to play cricket? At what point did that come up for you?
Yeah, well, that was straight away, really. I think as soon as I realised what was going on with when they said they need to get to hospital, straight away, and then I kind of, obviously I was on my phone researching what's this, what is type 1 diabetes, what happens to your body. I think then I was kind of worrying. And I can't remember. I would have asked the nurse and said, "Look, can I still play cricket?" And they were like, "Yeah, absolutely, no problem." And I think as soon as that was said, I think I probably calmed down a little bit. Then I knew it was obviously a little bit of a long road ahead, but the timing in a way wasn't too bad, because it was near the end of the cricket season, and I had a full winter to get used to how my body kind of looks after itself, and how I go about when I'm training, and how I manage my levels when I'm batting and bowling, etc. So that whole winter was then spent on me obviously taking part in physical activity, but seeing how that affected my body as well for the season after that.
We've had a comment come in. Can you see that? Which says about the level that Lisa's son was diagnosed at. So 37. So these are numbers that are wild. Like I haven't seen people talking about 37s and 40s. There's a lot of like early 30s and 20s I've heard diagnosed. But yeah, I mean, Lisa, that's hopefully they were able to sort it out as quickly as I guess the hospital were able to help Jordan in that situation, and you had a smooth as it can be kind of transition into this new world of living with type 1 in it. So yeah, tough, but hopefully everything is as okay as it can be, and you're getting the support, and then you got that support that you needed at that time as well. But really interesting to see the levels as high as that. 37 is rough. I don't think I've ever seen my level as high as that ever. So yeah, mad.
I think that the standard meters only go up to about 30, don't they?
Absolutely.
I don't know what the Libra goes up to. I think the Dexcom's up to 22.
Yeah,
I think, isn't it? And it's
I can't remember what the meter they use at me at the doctors exactly. I can remember it being 44, but ever since then I've ever been kind of high. I think I've had it come up once where it said high, and it's literally not reading. I think I might have been ill at one point.
Yeah,
but I've never had anything like a 44 come up.
Yeah, I think I've seen high as well. Like on a reading of one of the old finger prick testers, I think I've seen it come up high, which I think is over 33.3 from what I remember. I might be wrong, but I think that's the number that a blood glucose level reaches above for it to read high. So yeah, I was going to ask you.
Was that your Omnipod just going off there?
That was a little. Yeah, I think it's reminding me I've got to change my Omnipod in a little while, which is the truth. It's pod change day, so it's getting a little tinkle out of the handset there to say, Chris, you need to shift that and change pods. So yeah, it is. It is a constant reminder, isn't it? We've got Type 1. Well, whatever you're doing, there's always a little chime to Type 1 life, isn't there? There's always a little jingle that comes from somewhere on some sort of device.
But you know the noises as well. So I was like, that's an Omnipod one.
Yeah.
Recognize that.
Yeah, exactly. If you're an Omnipod user, you know the noise. It's like if you're a Dexcom user, you know what the alarm's going to sound like. Or a Freestyle Libre, like everybody knows the alarm. And you're like, oh. And even when you hear it like in passing in public, have you ever done that? Where you've walked past, and you're like, oh, I know that's that, and it's a unique sound. Like you do not hear it from mobile phones. You're like, oh, there's somebody else here with Type 1 because
that's something I've seen a lot more recently with the Libras, especially. They're popping up a lot more. Obviously, people wearing them back of the arms and stuff like that. It seems like they're a lot more common now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it would be where I was going to ask you next, Jordan, was a little bit around your, your introduction to cricket with Type 1 and how did that, come about from the perspective of when you were diagnosed? What did those first few weeks and months look like trying to learn and trying to adapt to this new world and this new life with Type 1 in it? And you mentioned there about tech, but when you were diagnosed, was that the same, or is that kind of transitioned and changed with time?
Yeah, so obviously back then it had been finger pricks. So obviously the coaching staff at Yorkshire and the medical staff were very aware, and that was kind of at the forefront of their mind when I was coming back to training, was making sure that they kept an eye on me and making sure that everything was okay to take part in training sessions and giving me the time to look at kind of have a finger prick check on the side or whatever I needed to do, and take time out of training at times just to get back into the flow of things. I think I can't actually remember. It is a bit of a blur after going back to training. I think obviously I threw myself back into it as much as possible, but they definitely looked out for me and made sure that I was able to give my all and work my way back into the team and the team environment. Funny story with it was I still take Lucozades, but I used to take Jaffa cakes, and I remember once the box of Jaffa cakes was in my spot next to my kit, and I came back in and I hadn't had a single Jaffa cake, and the whole box was gone. And the coaches after the session pulled everybody in and said, "Look, lads, there's one thing that you need to be aware of, and it's making sure that you're not stealing Tomo's sweet treats or whatever he's got with him, because it can be crucial at times." And the lads, ever since then, he'll never touch my stuff again.
Was there sort of in the dressing room, was there much knowledge of what diabetes was? Like, did anyone go, "Oh, I know someone that is," and sort of knew a little bit about it, or was it new to everyone? And how did they sort of react when they were told?
Yeah, no, it was new to everybody. Obviously, it was the typical thing of, "Oh, should you be eating that? Should you be eating this?" When you pull out a Mars bar or whatever, and you're like, "Yeah, I can eat what I want. I just need to make sure I take my insulin." So, no, obviously the lads were very intrigued, looked out for me pretty well, and obviously wanted to know about kind of how I manage my day-to-day life now and how I manage it when playing. So there was a lot of questions flying around, and obviously, like I said, when I had these Jaffa cakes and they stole them all, I'm more than happy for people to take them, and as long as they're asking me. So that's one thing that happens, and they still obviously take some of my sweets at times, but they just make sure that I'm happy with them doing it. So no, they have a good understanding now, and obviously that's it's the forefront of my mind, forefront of the coaching staff and the medical staff's mind, but it's also the forefront of my teammates as well. So making sure that I'm in the right space to go out there and perform.
Just sort of going back to what you said about so when you Googled you went online, "Can I still play cricket? What can I do?" And just tying a bit there with how none of your teammates knew about diabetes. Were there any other diabetic cricketers that you knew of? So, for example, me growing up, Sir Gary Mabbutt, sorry, absolute hero of mine. Obviously, I was diagnosed before the internet was out there, so it was a bit harder to find out. But that there was, you sort of had that role model who you knew, do you know what, he can still, like, he's shown that you can still play. Were there any cricketers that you were aware of, or that you could reach out to?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, actually, because, well, the only one that I knew of was Wasim Akram, and Wasim Akram, obviously at that time had retired, a long time retired, really. So there wasn't actually anybody on the professional circuit at that point who was type 1 diabetic. And I actually had the chance to meet Wasim Akram a few years ago. So I played for Karachi Kings in the Pakistan Super League, and Waz was the chairman of Karachi. So obviously he was around a lot. And as soon as kind of we got into the conversation of type 1 diabetes, he very much warmed to me. And we had some great chats about it, because I think when he played, it was the technology was nowhere near being developed, and it was a lot harder for him. So I probably have it a little easier than he did when he was playing cricket. But no, it was great to speak to him about experience and obviously how he finds it and how he found it back then. But now there's a lad called Josh Baker who plays for Worcester. So he's type 1 diabetic, and I'm not sure. I think there's one more, but I'm not actually sure who it is. So I'm pretty sure somebody mentioned to me a few weeks ago. I'll have to try and find that out for you. But no, like I say, I think obviously it's becoming more. I found out that Josh was type 1 diabetic because one of my best mates in cricket at the moment is Matthew Waite. He just moved to Worcester from Yorkshire, so he passed on that information. I haven't yet had a chance to speak to Josh. We only play them once a year in the T20s, so I'll have to have a catch up with him when I get a chance.
I think you know him, don't you? Or you've interacted with him, Brighty, haven't you?
Yeah. I've met Josh a few times and spoke to him this morning. I exchanged messages with him. So yeah, Bakes he's a really nice lad, and yeah, he's doing well with his type 1 and his cricket. So, and he's a young lad as well. So it's nice to see young upcoming getting the opportunity, no matter what stands in your way, whether it's type 1 or anything else, that he's able to manage his condition really well and get that chance to play and develop through the ranks. I think is a positive thing that you've seen him develop as a young cricketer, play academy, and that kind of coming through second string into the first team is brilliant to see. It means people are seeing that type 1 diabetes can be managed really well in an elite sporting environment, and it shouldn't stand in the way of whatever somebody wants to do. If you manage it well and you've got the right support, it can you can go on to do great things like you're doing, Jordan, like Josh is doing, like others are doing, and like Sir Gary as well, Sir Gary Mabbott, the man, and it's likewise. It was interesting because you mentioned about being a role model that just retired. It was the same for me with Gary Mabbott. He just retired as I was diagnosed, so it was kind of like I'd heard stories, but I didn't get to see it live, so it kind of felt like I was in a bit of a void then. I was lingering in the past where Gary had this amazing career and he'd done things with type 1, but he'd finished and there was nobody in that moment for like, I didn't find anyone really for like 5 to 10 years in the noughties, if you like, the 2000s. It was quiet, and also we didn't have the internet I said we didn't have the internet, we did, but it was finding people's stories via the internet. We didn't have social media in the same way. You couldn't connect the dots. You couldn't find those people as easily. So yeah, it was I guess the 2010s have been where it all started to change, and that opportunity to find others and seek out stories and inspiration and connect with others has been really important. And is there anyone that you really lean to, Jordan, in your world, or people that you connect with on a regular basis, or in the diabetes community? Is there things that you take from it or connect with people on, or is it kind of you work in your kind of elite environment and you get a lot of the support from your family, friends, and the kind of doctors that support you, the medical professionals, or do you have a little bit in the diabetes community as well to talk about type 1 with people that understand type 1?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously, well, firstly with Diabetes UK, I try and get to as many things as I can as possible. It's obviously tricky for me when I'm away through the winter and playing in the summer. So it's obviously there's these events that happen every so often, and it just so happens that I'm normally playing or training or something like that. So obviously speaking to you guys and reaching out to, I speak to John McKee Obviously, quite a bit over email. And like I say, in my kind of area of playing cricket, there's not like many people who've got that experience playing cricket, and I can go to him or her and say, look, this is what I'm struggling with when I'm bowling or batting. Can you kind of help me out? And I feel like I'm that kind of person for some people. I get a lot of messages on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and I'm that kind of person for certain people. So I think it's kind of making my own way in that situation. Obviously, family, friends, they're crucial. My mum and dad might be watching this, but they're very guilty of still asking me how my levels are when I'm playing, etc. So, which is absolutely fine, but that's just them worrying when I'm away from home and stuff. So, no, I think the support kind of comes within myself, and obviously if I need anything, then I go to certain people, family, friends, whoever I know that can help me out.
And how do you find passing that on to the next generation? I'm imagining there's a cohort of young cricketers out there with Type 1, and they're looking up to you playing first class cricket, playing in the top level, playing for Yorkshire, one of the largest, biggest teams around in the cricket world, county cricket, and they're asking them. They must be queuing up for your advice and asking you, how do you find sort of passing that on, and what common themes do you tend to sort of have conversations around, do you think, with the next generation, or even adults that are playing now? I'm assuming it's probably get inundated with all sorts of people from different walks of life.
Yeah, no, it's obviously I love helping people if they're reaching out to me. It means a lot to me because obviously I'm doing something right, whether that's in my career or day-to-day life. So I'm very happy to help where I can. I think it's obviously, you boys know, it's a very individual thing at times. It's type 1 diabetes. It's things that work for me might not work for you, Brighty, or things that do work for me might work for you also. So I'm very wary of what I do say to certain people. It might be I'll say, this is the advice I'll give you. It's something that works for me. When I go and bowl, I'll do this and I'll do that. But it might not work for you. It's obviously something that you trial yourself, and if it does work, then happy days. And if not, then you search for something else to try and work it out.
It's interesting you say there about sort of you being contacted on social media. I think that was one of my first interactions with yourself, and it was a message that I sent you saying just how I've been sat watching some cricket with my oldest, and you were bowling, and I'd said to him, "Oh, that lad going into bowl there, he's a diabetic as well." And there was sort of that moment where he turned around, he was like, "Oh, cool." But it was that normalizing it as well, because we like watching sport together, but I'd never been in that position where I can go, that's a diabetic cricketer.
Yeah.
So it was that, it was quite a sort of a powerful moment. Again, just going, look, diabetics, we can do absolutely anything, and just showing. I think the more that's out there, and I think you're absolutely brilliant at it with your talking about it, with being so open and putting stuff on social media that you see. It's just showing everyone, look, it's not stopping me doing what I really want to do, and it's I think it's massive credit to you and all the others who are out there doing it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said there about what Jordan's doing. I think I see a lot of your stuff, and I think it's brilliant what you're trying to do and raise awareness. And the key thing, from my point of view, is representation matters. And having a role model or a Type 1 athlete in different sports really does matter to the Type 1 community. And there's a couple of you in cricket, which is amazing. There's a few in football that we can link to. There's a couple in netball. It's kind of making sure we've got those role models in all of the sports to look up to, because they really do matter to the next generation of children who are, unfortunately, like we were diagnosed as children. They need that inspiration. They need to find the people that they want to aspire to be, that the footballers, the cricketers, the netballers, the rugby players of the future. They need that, and that's what is so important about you sharing it, Jordan, and being that cricketer, that voice within cricket, to showcase what you go through and how you manage it. And I think that's probably the next question I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask it to you after I show you one of the questions from one of the community which has just come in. But I want to talk to you a little bit after this question around how you manage what your routines and how you tackle different things. So this question I wanted to put just to you first, and also before you tackle this one from Lisa, is there anybody else listening in, watching? If you've got questions, please do on whatever channel you're watching it on. Just drop it in the comments, and we can try and get them up on screen for Jordan to tackle, or me and Peachy. We really don't mind as well if you want to position it to either of us as well. But while Jordan's here, please do get the questions into him. He's the main man tonight. So this question from Lisa: devices and visibility. We've obviously just touched on that, which is why I wanted to bring it up on screen about that representation, showing it off. How do you think and feel about that, Jordan? What's your views on that?
Yeah, I think at the start, so obviously I wear Freestyle Libra, so obviously it's only quite small compared to some of the kind of Omnipods or the all the other devices that are around. So I think at first I was probably a bit wary, and I was obviously having a bit of a stigma of having something on there and people going, oh, what's that? Like, why have you got this on? And the questions that come with it. And I think obviously as I've worn it more and more, that's when I've just got used to it. I'm like, well, I really don't mind. It's something that I need, and it's something that helps me out. So I think you're growing confidence when you're wearing these things, and you know for a fact if people know that it's pretty much saving your life, then that they're going to accept it as well. It's not something to be frowned upon.
Yeah, do you find it kind of starts with a question because people are unsure, and then when you answer the question, it's kind of like, oh yeah, great, and you just kind of move on. And perhaps sometimes I don't know, maybe we build it up slightly, and we're concerned. Obviously, there's lots of stigma and stereotypes which surround diabetes, but when you talk to your teammates, often they're pretty accepting of the technology and why you're wearing it. I find that in the changing room I'm in now, there's new players that come in and out. They ask first time, they say, "What's that you're wearing?" And then after that, it's just it's acceptance almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like lads are very kind of impressed by the technology. Really, like obviously you go back 10, 15 years when this, not even that, less than that, when it's not even around. And the fact that when I get my phone out and scan a little white sensor on my skin, and it tells me all these details about how I'm going and what I need to do to keep my life going. Really, so it's obviously they're very interested, and I'm always open to answering their questions, and they find it pretty fascinating, really.
Yeah. Do you think have you faced much stigma or negativity towards your condition whilst playing cricket, Jordan? Or is it kind of, we know it exists, right? The stigma, we're floating around in different pockets throughout our society and culture. Do you feel cricket deals with it well? Not seeing much in cricket compared to other places. Where do you sort of see it in your space, in your sport?
Yeah, I think, like I say, with there's only been a couple of us who are actually playing professional sport and kind of in the public eye in a way. I guess it's not really. I don't really find there is any stigma. Obviously, I go out there and play, and it's not like lads. I think other opposition teams will know that I'm diabetic, but they would never kind of say anything against it. Or if I need a break to get, for example, if I'm batting and I have to stop the game to get some Lucozade or whatever, they'd never go, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Wasting time, whatever. I think they're very accepting of it, and I think that's obviously the way it should be. It's not necessarily always going to be like that, but definitely in cricket, people are very accepting of it.
How would you answer that one then, Brighty? If like, are you like now? I see you, and you're quite you're not shy in shots, sort of showing it off. The thing that I picked out of that was as a 13-year-old. How do you think you would have been as a 13-year-old, Brighty? Would you have shown it off? Would you have been a bit more nervous? I think we're all happy to do it now as adults, but I've actually worked with youngsters similar age to that sort of that teenage years where they don't want it to be seen, and they sort of see it as standing out and being a bit different.
And that's the important bit and the context, isn't it? It's the timing and the age, and sometimes where you are in your life also matters, and the culture and the environments that you're in. Me being in a predominantly kind of football culture environment, in a fairly sort of, let's call it lower middle class, working class area, playing football, and the school I went to, it was kind of like I wouldn't have really dreamt of showcasing it as a 13-year-old. I was nowhere near that. I was hiding it as much as I could, not showing it off, because I just, as a teenager, I just wanted to fit in with everybody else. I knew I couldn't fit in with everybody else, but I that's what I was trying to achieve, and it's difficult. I live with type 1, but I couldn't achieve what fitting in meant, which was basically getting rid of type 1. Like, that was what in my head I was trying to do by hiding it, was almost showcase myself that I didn't have type 1 to the outside world, obviously knowing deep down that I've got all this stuff to do, which is managing type 1 diabetes. So yeah, I think it really matters, the context, because we hear, I think, through the diabetes football community quite a bit about people and youngsters finding it challenging to have that signpost on of wearing tech, and embracing it is sometimes not that easy at different points in our life. Jordan, what would you, I know you were diagnosed at 16, but if you were to take yourself back to that 16-year-old, do you think you'd have stuck tech straight on your arm and gone with it?
No, I totally agree with you. I think, like I say, I think at first, even when I first got the Libra, I think I was conscious of making sure it was kind of further up my arm, so it was up my sleeves. You know what I mean? So I think, obviously, I think I was much more worried about the kind of questions that you get and people bombarding you, and being like, "What's that? What's this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?" And obviously, I think the fact back in when I was 16 was the injections. Obviously, getting my pen out in class or at lunchtime, or whatever, and people have been like, "Why are you doing that? That's a bit weird." I think, and you're like, "Well, this is why." And if I don't do it, then I'm not going to keep myself alive, pretty much. So, no, I think obviously it takes a bit of confidence building, and obviously you always get there at some point, and you want to fit in as much as possible. But when people mature and you realize that it's actually very important that you do these things, and then people start to accept it.
I think it's one of the things on that just story. I can't remember which one of the girls in the community it was. It might have been Lucy, was talking about how when she was away on holiday, and she was in a club and she saw someone else with the Libra, and they just went up to each other.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Oh, diabetic," yeah. And it was that thing that's sort of getting it, like Jordan said, about it's more recognized now. You see more and more people, like you go to the gym, you go swimming, you go on holiday, and you do see a lot more of it. But I think that sort of, especially those teenage years where you want to hide it, like if I was out and I was going to do an injection, I'd go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Even in my 20s, like you'd be in pubs and clubs, you wouldn't sort of do it in public through fear of anyone sort of going to what you're doing, or anyone thinking, "Oh, why has he got a needle? Why is he injecting something into himself?" And actually, you're going to the most unhygienic place possible, to go and do it. And actually, what are you doing wrong? But it's that, I guess, that sort of fear of what are other people going to think, and we can sit here and go, "Oh, it shouldn't be like that." But I think everyone is going to be different with that. I wouldn't inject in the classroom. I would always sort of go down to first aid and do it, or go into the toilet as I got older, because I didn't want to sort of be seen going into the first aid room every day, and getting a bit fed up of it. But no, I think it's a really tricky one, Lisa, and as long as he's wearing it, I think, and he's got it sort of connected to the phone. I think as we're all showing, sort of the time will come where it does become, "Oh, do you know what? I'm comfy with people knowing, I'm comfy showing it off. It's not a problem." But yeah, I think those teenage years can be quite tough.
I think, and I've already touched on it, but representation matters. So Jordan showing and talking about wearing technology in a first-class cricket match, top level in this country, is really important, because it then makes that, he's doing it there when wearing it in school and getting that opportunity to say, look, there's a professional cricketer that wears this tech. I wear the same tech as Jordan, who plays for Yorkshire. That's really important in embracing technology, seeing the people that these youngsters aspire to be, whether that's in music or whether that's in sport or whatever it may be, but just seeing those people wearing the tech that we're now saying is helping change our lives. If we can see it and showcase it in our hands and being used by the people that these youngsters aspire to be, then we're going to have a chance at being able to get those youngsters who are finding it tough onto technology, because they can then turn around and say, I use the same tech as Jordan Thompson. He plays for Yorkshire. That matters. And I think that's the thing that will really help. So having examples like this and having this conversation is huge in helping people to embrace technology in this day and age when it is everywhere. It's great, but it's not just about the physiological outcomes of HbA1c's and improving glucose levels. Psychologically, you need to get to a place where you're happy to wear something on your body which demonstrates that you live with type 1. So to do that is not as straightforward as just sticking it on. So this is a great way of talking about it and showcasing it. And I think just a brilliant way of, let's keep that conversation going. I think we have it all the time, John. We talk about it a lot with our youngsters, but I think we're getting this out there more into sport and across sports and across other industries which are highly influential for young people is something that's massive, really, really massive to tech uptake for children that are finding it maybe a little bit tougher to embrace it straight off the bat. Let's use a cricket pun to do that. So, and then,
I'm just thinking that. So what we're saying is that when Jordan's playing in the 100, the first televised game on BBC, takes his first wicket, hits his first 50, we want to see sleeve up.
Yes, yeah, centre,
giving it back to the Libra.
Yeah, we want it pointed to. We want it running away, wheeling away, giving it the old point. So
I'll have to get that out. You have to remind me.
Yeah,
first,
there you go.
It would be brilliant. I mean, you're going to be playing a number of TV games, I imagine, across the summer, Jordan. So there's going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, an opportunity to give it give a little sensor, a little flash on there, and do it for the community, do it for people with type 1. They'd love to see it, but yeah, no pressure. We are messing, but that would be brilliant to see. And then I suppose on the topic of cricket and management and tech and all that side of things, we obviously want to talk to you about how you manage it. You're playing different formats of the game. You've played for a long time. You've played without diabetes. You play with diabetes cricket. So with all of that in mind, how do you go about tackling, your training methods? Obviously, going to be busy throughout the week with different types of training. Yep. You've got different formats of the game to play. What's your sort of approach? How do you tackle it?
Yeah, it's obviously, like I say, it differs massively out of season and in season. I'll start with out of season actually, because it's quite interesting how it kind of works. We get a kind of a 6-week block off everything at the start of October into mid-November, and my body kind of goes into a bit of confusion there, because obviously I've come off the back of a season where I'm working hard every week, and my sugars tend to rise a little bit, because my body's like, why are you not running around? Why are you having a few beers or eating more food and going on holiday, whatever? So I think my sugars rise a little bit, and then once I get back into my training and get into a routine, that's when I'm at my best controlling. I'll get into we have 4 days of training from November to Christmas, where it'll be weight training, long distance running, conditioning, and speed training, let's say. So it's very important for me to then get into a routine, not only with my levels, but also how I my nutrition as well. So my nutrition is very important, I find, for my key part of the day is my breakfast. I tend to have a very similar breakfast each day, because I know how my body reacts to that breakfast. So when I'm going to training, I know that my blood sugar levels should be at an optimum level for me to go into the gym and do my strength training or do a run. Obviously, the worst case scenario is going low and then having to fill myself up again on Lucozades or anything sweet. So that's the kind of winter period, and obviously that then changes when I come into the cricket season, because we have 4-day games, we have T20 games, 100 games. The 4-day games are a tricky one, because I could be sat on my backside for a full day if we're not bowling. The lads could be batting and bat really well, and I might not have to do anything. So therefore, my body again is a bit confused, because it thinks I should be running around and doing all these things, because I've just come off the back of a tough pre-season. And then I've got to manage it in a different way. So I might have to take a little bit more insulin on board, maybe not eat as many carbs as I would do at lunchtime when I'm bowling, because I don't actually need those carbs. And yeah, that I find that quite tricky, because it's getting the balance between going out and bowling, then coming off. For example, this week I bowled quite a lot. We had one of our lads went down injured, so I had to bowl more overs than probably needed to. But in the evening, I was dropping quite drastically, so I was taking probably 2 or 3 units less than what I would do to try and keep it up. But maybe last week when I didn't play, I wasn't doing half as much as I would have done. So therefore, my body was then my blood sugar levels were a little bit higher. So that's a tricky point. But anyway, yeah. So on to T20. T20 is a totally different one again, because the adrenaline's a lot higher. We have decent crowds, kind of 10 to 15,000 at times. And what I find is during a 20 over spell of fielding and bowling, I will come off and my blood sugar levels will just skyrocket, which again is a bit of a tricky one to deal with, because if we're batting in the second innings, I need to take some insulin, but I feel like sometimes it then drops off a cliff and goes the total other way. So that's not as a result of eating too many carbs. It's literally just adrenaline that flies it up. So I've kind of learned over the last few years how to deal with it. It's very, like I say, it's very individual. So when I'm actually playing 4-day cricket, I don't mind being a touch higher. I'm not saying too high, but I'd rather go out there and field and bowl knowing that I'm not going to go low, because obviously that can then affect how I'm playing. It can affect my team's performance, because if I need to go off after 2 or 3 overs and I'm bowling well and taking wickets, then that affects my team performance. So I'd rather be a little bit higher and be able to kind of perform my role to the best of my ability, instead of having to spend time off the field. So yeah, it definitely varies through different formats. It's obviously a matter of working out what works for me and making sure that I do the best to look after myself, and that my health's always the first thing before cricket. But obviously being out there and being able to perform to an optimum level is very important too.
Do you keep a sort of by the side of the pitch, or have the 12th man put a bottle of Lucozade or something down by the side for yourself, or do you just sort of rely on? Because the other thing is, you be out there, if you start at 11, your lunch is at 1.
Yeah.
Do you go 2 hours without testing? If you're out in the field, how does that?
Yeah, obviously I'm quite lucky. Obviously in professional sport with 12 men, that they can run on and obviously give me my drink or my scanner at any point, really. So what I tend to do is, every time, if we start at 11, for example, every time I've finished a spell of bowling, so let's say I bowl 6 overs and then the captain takes me off, I'll always go off for 1 or 2 overs. The umpires are actually very good with it. The match officials they all know that I'm type 1 diabetic, so they're like, yeah, no worries, get yourself off, go check, make sure everything's okay, and then I'll come back onto the field, and that works out pretty well, because then I'll go off for lunch, and obviously then I've got 40 minutes to work out what's going on, and then I can go back out and play again. So the 4-day game isn't too bad, because it's kind of 2-hour block, 2-hour block, 2-hour block. So you do get your time to sit down and make sure that everything's in order.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing the blend across the different formats, and I kind of liken it a little bit to the differences between football and futsal, which are the formats of the game, of kicking a ball into a goal, if you like, that we predominantly look at, if you like, in the diabetes football community.
Yeah.
And seeing those adrenaline spikes for that faster, shorter game in futsal is more common, and then seeing the kind of drops and the kind of if you like, the need for maybe taking on carbohydrates or having them more readily available at times in the football match, and needing to take them on board at half time and look at what's going on in the second half. And because of the prolonged movement and activity that you're involved in. And it's really interesting to obviously hear that spoken about in cricket, because it's the themes that really help us learn. And actually you can see the themes coming out in two different sports. They look very different to everyone, but actually when you think about some of the ways that there's prolonged activity, there's the short bursts, there's those bowling spells that you have, Jordan, where you're literally flying down to the wickets on I don't know how many overs back to back. You know, you'll be off, run over, back on again. Spells of what, 4?
I think it changes. Like obviously in obviously T20 cricket, you've only got 4 overs you can bowl, but if you're bowling well in 4-day cricket, you can bowl 6, 7, 8 overs at a time. So obviously that's when I have the real drops, and I know it's going to happen. So it's a matter of getting off and making sure I probably get a little. We have these little energy carb bars that I probably get in myself and make sure that I kind of what I like to call it, like catch the drop. So it's just important that obviously at times it's definitely a guessing game. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and making sure that you can kind of estimate what's gonna happen after a 6-7 over spell.
Have you ever been in that position where you're bowling well, you're sort of, let's say 4-5 overs in, the captain wants to keep you on, but you're going, do you know what, I can feel it dropping, I'm not in a good place, and you've had to say, I can't do it, I need to go off?
Touch wood, I haven't. I have felt myself dropping at times, but I've been quick enough to go and get the 12th man on and get a Red Bull down me. That's the drink of choice sometimes if I want to get it flying back up. So hopefully that doesn't happen in the near future. But no, hopefully I can keep managing it well in those bowling spells.
And who sort of helps you the most then around the management? Because obviously there's lots of doctors and physios involved in elite sport, but then there's also doctors involved in type 1 diabetes care. So who kind of looks after you, Jordan? Who kind of links it together? Who do you speak to from that medical perspective about your condition? Would you do it both? Do you do all of it?
Yeah, obviously the physios at the club are the main kind of point of contact, but it's more me teaching them in a way. They can obviously do as much as I can ask them to do, but at the end of the day, it's obviously down to me and how I feel to make sure I can go out there and play. But again, with not much experience in cricket from other people, I think I've spoken to Dr. Rajana, who I see at Leeds Clinic. He's very good with me. He likes his cricket as well, and although he can't speak from experience of going out there and playing and doing all this himself, he obviously advises me pretty well. So he's somebody that I see when I go back, and he's always asking me questions about how I'm going with the sport and things like that. So no, I think it's something that I take massively on myself, and obviously there's people there to speak to if I really need them to, but they know that me looking after myself is probably the main thing, and if they can help in any way, then they're there.
And when you're at home, girlfriend looking out for you?
Yeah, she's okay. She's just come across from Australia, so she's had to get used to kind of my habits in the house and things like that, and rustlings of sweet packets in the middle of the night. But yeah, she made me get a new glass jar, so I didn't make any noise at night if I was having a low. So no, I guess one thing is obviously relationships and making sure that you're making people aware is obviously critical, really. Obviously something that Tina had never come across herself when we got together, and it's something that took a little bit of getting used to and understanding what I was doing day to day and how I looked after myself. So obviously that support's always key, and no, she's really good with it.
And were you nervous about that sort of that first conversation of going, do you know what, I'm a type 1 diabetic, I have to inject 4, 5, 6 times a day, or did it just sort of feel natural and it was she just accepted it? And
yeah, I think it probably came up pretty easily because it's all over my social media, so it wasn't like I need to go, oh yeah, by the way, this is this. And I think it was a question that came up pretty quickly when we met. So it was just getting used to the fact that I had obviously a needle stuck in me every meal and understanding why I needed to do that. So I think there was obviously plenty of questions, but I was more than happy to answer those.
That's the key thing, is it? Like we've talked about the questioning, the the sort of being open about it, being honest, and I think that's the key thing of any relationship, really, isn't it? And having that support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's obviously if you beat around the bush and leave it till a couple of months in, then it might be a bit of a surprise when there's a few needles on your bedside table. So no, I think it's important to be honest and open with everything possible, and it's something not to be embarrassed about.
Have you had has she recognised the sort of the going low and the sort of the whether it's your mood changes, whether it's the sweats?
Yeah, that is actually one thing I was about to say is the sweaty palms at times. I think when she's if she held my hand and she's like, "Oh, you got a bit of a sweaty palm," and then I'm straight onto the testing. So no, I think there's little things that are coming up that she's starting to notice.
Brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's well, I think it happens to all of us. We've got to explain at some point and have those conversations when meeting partners and having relationships with girlfriends, boyfriends, whoever it may be. It's kind of that's part of the what I guess you're signing up for, and those conversations you have to have pretty early on, because it's a huge part of our lives that we have to manage and take it on. So massive kudos to all of the partners out there that are taking it on in our lives and supporting us, because it's another big thing in our worlds that we have to navigate around. So yeah, and I'm just looking at the time, just thinking we're getting a little bit towards that kind of, I suppose, closing and coming in on an hour, and I know there's quite a few people watching, so I'm hoping there might be some questions. So if you are watching on one of our social media channels and you want to ask Jordan some questions or get a question into him, please do stick it in the comment box, and we will be able to pull it up on screen and get Jordan to answer it, or if you want to pose it to me or Peachy, by all means. But whilst people hopefully are flooding in with their questions, we can't let you come on the Diabetes Dugout and not talk any football, Jordan. So
correct.
Do you want to tell the people that are watching who's your team and how nervous you must be for the end of this current season?
Yeah, so yeah, for people who don't know, I'm a massive Leeds fan, and I was sat in my chair last night. There was no nails left by the end, especially when Middlesbrough got a third back with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, header it was as well, by the way.
It was, but it just soft. It was a really strange game because it just felt like nobody wanted to defend, and it was slow motion. We were finding gaps, they were finding gaps, and you could tell there was going to be 5, 6, 7 goals in that game last night. And obviously, me sat there watching, it wasn't a pleasant game for the neutral. It was nice, but yeah, I'm hoping we can win Friday night because we can put some massive pressure on Ipswich, because we'll be 4 clear with obviously they'll have 2 games in hand, but they've got 2 tough games. So if we can win that game at QPR on Friday, then we can put massive pressure on those boys. I think it's between us and Ipswich now. I think Leicester are pretty much up. So no, it's always nervy watching Leeds. It's never pleasant at all.
You don't like to do it easily, that is for sure. You've managed to make it into an exciting end for the neutral to the Championship season, when probably there's been some games I thought Leeds have got to win this, and I've looked at the fixture and thought, this will be straightforward. Turn around an hour and a half later, they've thrown it away. So, I mean, you've kept it exciting for us all to look at for the end of the season.
Well, that's the thing. I think you look at the kind of form after Christmas. We didn't lose until the end of March, and obviously to go on that run when we were so far behind, we were 17 points behind Leicester at one point. So to obviously pull it back, obviously as Leeds fans, we are very fickle at times. It's not really lasted in our memory, the fact that we went on that unbeaten run, and we've come to that point now where we look like we're about to bottle it. But no, obviously the credit to the lads for getting us back into that position where we could potentially go up. But it just so happened that Ipswich and Leicester Leicester and Ipswich kept winning late on. It just seemed like every week they were drawing 2-2 and winning 3-2 in the 97th minute or whatever it is. So no, it's definitely been an exciting season, but hopefully we can get over the line, because I don't fancy the playoffs, and if we don't go up, then I think we're going to lose a fair few players.
So what are you going to Southampton tonight, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, let's go.
Do you want to know?
Get that score up. Tell us what the score is, Jordan.
It's currently 1-0 to Leicester.
Oh.
Half time.
Okay, we could. Southampton are out of it if they lose that, but I think they're pretty much out of it anyway because they got beat by Cardiff the other day. So we'll see how that goes.
Are you going to do it then? This is the main question. Are you going to be a Premier League football team next year, Leeds United?
I'm saying yes. I think we'll win Friday, and I think Ipswich will mess up there. I think they'll draw and lose their next 2 games.
They still got Coventry to play, haven't they?
Yeah, they got Coventry. They play Hull away on Saturday night at 8 o'clock, which is a tough game, and then they've got Coventry away as well. So 2 tough games.
Two pushing for the playoffs with stuff to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's going to be nervy, that's for sure.
Well, you've heard it here first, people watching. Leeds United will be a Premier League team next year, according to Jordan. So we won't hold him to it or anything like that. Obviously it's not recorded or anything tonight, so we can't clip it up or send it to him in a few weeks' time when maybe it didn't happen that way. So joking aside, I would like to see Leeds back in the Premier League because they're a massive football team. And I always love a Villa Leeds game. I don't know what it is. It's a pretty good game. There was some nice rivalries in the Championship, and then they both made the Premier League, and then we just about clung on by the skin of our teeth. And now we're flying. And I can talk from heady heights of the potential of Champions League football. So
there's a question, Brighty. We should probably move on to that, shouldn't we?
No, we'll skip that. I don't want that clipped up for me in a few weeks. So I'll abdicate that authority to not answer that question, especially when me and you are Villa and Spurs. So it's we'll skip that one over because actually, really importantly, there's a good question in the comments. So we'll move straight to that. So this one is a good one. So does playing cricket abroad in hot countries present challenges with Type 1? Good question, Stephen. Absolutely. What you reckon then, George?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to play in quite a few places now. I play in the UAE quite a lot, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and obviously you get kind of 30 plus days there. And no, definitely, I think the amount of sweat that I produce when I'm playing cricket, especially in those countries, my blood sugar levels seem to just plummet at times. So it's massively important that I'm probably more on it over there than I am when I'm back in England. So making sure that I've got those sports drinks there and my nutrition's right. It's actually something that I do when I'm going to these countries is finding the nearest shop to get these sports drinks, because obviously they don't have the Lucozades and etc. in your Abu Dhabi and Dubai. It's a matter of finding a substitute. So making sure that I've got these drinks and these sweet treats on the side, and making sure that whatever team, if I go play for a franchise team in Abu Dhabi, it's making sure that again the medical staff are very aware of what goes on and what I need from them to be able to manage it and look after myself, really. So no, good question. Definitely does affect it.
And presumably, if you're buying stuff out there, and I know this from chatting to one of the lads, Scotty, just because something like a Red Bull works for you here, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have the same carb content or the same sugar content when you go abroad as well. So it's not just a case of nipping down to your local supermarket and going, right, I know that works back home. You're having to look and go, actually, what's my carb? Like, how many carbs, how many grams of sugar am I going to have with it?
That's like I pick up. I think it might have been Gatorade. It was in the UAE, and I turn it around, and it's all in Arabic, and I'm having to try and scan it and find out what the carb content in these certain bottles was and things like that. And eventually managed to find out, but it wasn't. It was through probably asking one of my teammates what it actually meant.
Yeah,
great question, Steve. Steve's one of my work colleagues.
There you go. Primed him with a question, didn't you, John? You got a cracker out of Stephen there.
I wouldn't come up with one that good.
If there's any more, do get them in the comments quickly, because I'm coming on to probably one of our final questions, which we kind of ask, I guess, everyone, Jordan, which is that kind of passing it on or paving it forward to the next generation, and your advice, really. So for young aspiring people in sport or the cricket especially, living with Type 1 or parent impacted with Type 1, what sort of advice would you give to to the children, maybe firstly, or young people with type 1 that want to aspire to be in your place, and then maybe to their parents that that are looking to you as well for that kind of guidance?
Yeah, I think it's something that I stick by quite a lot. I've said it ever since the beginning of being diagnosed, really, and it's just making sure you still give it your everything. Obviously, look after yourself and believe that you can go out there and do what you want to do. Obviously, there is times when you doubt yourself, and I'm guilty of that as well when I was first diagnosed. But knowing that it doesn't stop you from doing certain things, whether that's playing professional sport, obviously it doesn't have to be sport. It can be anything in life that you want to do, but just making sure you still have that belief day to day. We all have hard times. I have hard times. There's times when I'm really fighting myself and I can't quite get my levels right, and it's really frustrating me. But I know that it's just a small period of time, and obviously, as long as I'm trying my best to look after myself, it's the most you can do, and just give yourself the best chance to get to where you want to be, because you can definitely do it with type 1 diabetes as well.
Yeah, and there's nothing better than that sort of advice to sort of finish on, Jordan. So there doesn't seem to be any more questions in the comments, but if people have got questions or they want to reach out to you, Jordan, where do they find you? Where's the best place if you're okay with sharing it, or those youngsters that want to reach out to you or already have, where do they find you? Where do they get in contact?
Any social media page really. Fit my Instagram, Jordan.a.thompson. That's pretty reachable, and my Twitter as well. I think it's Tomo455. So any of those channels, any questions in the DMs and things like that, then that's totally fine. I'm more than happy to answer questions, whatever that may be, whether it's about the sport itself or about type 1 diabetes as well. So no, it's I'm very, very reachable.
Brilliant.
Amazing. And just to say from me, a massive thank you for coming on tonight, Jordan. It's been a brilliant chat. Loads of different things to pull out of that, and some great conversations. Hopefully some amazing insight for people watching, as well as inspiration around your story and what you've been through and what you've achieved. I think so many people will look up to you for what you've done and how you go about it as well. Really engaged in the community, really supporting people. A number of people have reached out to me since we announced that you were coming on the podcast to say what a great person you are and you've helped someone else. And I think that it really sums it up. And just a thank you for being here tonight, but also a thank you for just being a great role model for the community and supporting people of all ages with type 1 diabetes who are wanting to be active and want to play sport and look up to you. So yeah, massive thank you from me for joining us tonight. And long may your career be amazing, and we'll be looking out for you. We'll be watching. We'll be hopefully
looking for the celebration.
We'll look at that celebration as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I say you have to keep reminding me about that. I'll definitely pull it out if I get the chance to get a wicket in one of the games.
Yeah. I've had a look. So the Trent Rockets first game. Where's the date on it? Friday, 26th of July. So I'll text you that morning.
Yeah, unfamiliar territory. It's at Headingley as well. So get a wicket there.
That's it. We'll be looking out, and anybody watching who's watching this, make sure you're looking out for Jordan chucking that ball down there on the 26th, looking for that wicket, because that arm's coming up, that Libra's popping out, and we're going to see type 1 on the TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love that.
Cheers, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Jordan.
Love being on. It's always nice to do these kind of things. So thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks everyone for chipping in with questions as well. And until the next time, thanks, and we'll see you then.